Tonight, in our second series of lecture by our dear Professor Fatimah on spirituality, on Tasawwuf, which is very important nowadays. Last week, Prof did mention about neglecting spirituality leads to extremism. One of the topic that Prof discussed last week, which is very true. Nowadays, we see this quote unquote our friend, our brothers, sisters who are so rigid in the interpretation of Islam, and then neglecting about compassion, about empathy, and so on and so forth. So, Alhamdulillah, this topic of tasawwuf, spirituality, or Sufism is indeed very, very important to us. So, without further ado, we invite our dear Prof to continue with the second lecture tonight. Prof?
Inshallah. Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين ومن تبعه إلى يوم الدين. Thank you, Brother Shahran. Inshallah, our second topic today is about understanding Islamic religiosity and spirituality by focusing on psychology and theology of submission, that leads to the conclusion of the ihsan aspect of Islam, that based on the hadith of Islam, iman and ihsan. Yeah. The background of this topic is actually to respond to the current problem related to the issue of spiritualism. Spirituality becomes spiritualism by some school of thought, particularly Western school of thought about spirituality. So spirituality that has nothing to do with religion. Spirituality does not need religion in order to make people become spiritual. So this is the background of the topic. So inshallah, I have a small capacity to explain the topic on spirituality is very broad, and it is deep discussion because it is the core of religion and it is the substance of religion, spirituality. So we'll see how the different between spirituality in Islam and spirituality in the West is a big gap between the two. There is no comparison, of course. Yeah, if spirituality in the West understood as spirituality which has nothing to do with Islam. So I have here slides and my outlines. As you can see here, we have 5 topics, subtopics. A bit on definition of Islamic spirituality, psychology of submission, theology of submission, submission as fitrah, and lastly, ihsan as the pinnacle of Islamic spirituality. So when we speak about Islamic spirituality, actually we speak about ihsan. When we mention about spirituality, the Arabic term for spiritual is ar-ruh. Yeah. So ar-ruh for Muslim, we believe that it is element or it is a grant from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to mankind. Without ruh, we may not have, because ruh goes direct to the essence of man or substance of man. Ruh is with this property that given by God, we understand spirituality, we understand God, we understand the world of spirit, we understand spiritual world, of course we understand religion. So without this property in ourselves, we cannot understand, we cannot take responsibility, we cannot be proper human being. So ruh, discussion on concept of ruh in relation to human being is extremely important, because ruh is related to the substance or essence of man from Islamic perspective. Yeah. So ruh in Arabic word, ruh, ruhiyah, or something related to ruh, ruhaniyah, spirituality can be translated as rawhaniyah, or condition of the ruhiyah, the inner state of human being. Yeah, ruhaniyah is the state of someone. When we say the ruhaniyah of a person, we mention, actually we speak about the state of someone realizes the presence of a relationship between him and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most gracious. Yeah, so when we speak about ruhaniyah, is actually focused on the relationship between human being and the creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the discussion on spirituality is a very high, is not a normal discussion, or it is not simple discussion. It is very deep discussion, but I have no much knowledge about it. Only just to share superficial what I collected here and there, so that I can share. We can share together, and I'm sure the audience and the audience tonight we have a lot of knowledge. If I understand from the question you posed last week, mashallah, of high caliber, and some of them I have no time to catch the question. Therefore, I did not reply yet. Inshallah, I hope tonight I can look at the question and respond as much as I can. So ruh is element given to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to mankind. So it always search for the truth and the transcendence, because the nature of ruh is coming from transcendence. Allah says in the Quran, وَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي, I have blown my ruh into the body of human beings, so that they become proper human being. Yeah. One more point, without a spiritual dimension, we may not understand our religion. Without spiritual dimension, because understanding spiritual dimension is a religious obligation. So once you become Muslim, you expect to understand God, to understand things, the nature of man, human soul, to understand the spiritual world. If we have no such property in ourselves, or if Allah did not blow His soul into the body of human being, how would we expect people to understand such kind of knowledge? So, but however, defining spirituality is not easy. It's beyond our capacity, because it is related to the divine secret of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, but to understand, to go deep inside into this issue, it is beyond our capacity, because Allah says in the Quran, Surah Al-Shu'ara, verse 89, saying that, وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ قُلِ الرُّوحِ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي. They ask Rasulullah SAW about the ruh. So, and Allah revealed to the Prophet SAW, revelation to Prophet SAW, saying that Kulli ruhu min amri Rabbi. This issue or the matter of ruh is belong to the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not in the domain of human being. However, it doesn't mean that we cannot have even discussed on the issue, or we just put aside. Because how could we put aside? Because on this issue, because to understand some things related to spirituality, you need to have the capacity. That's why Allah granted us that capacity or property to understand to some extent. Yeah. So discussion on spiritualization is, at least actually we can discuss the effect as a process, or to go to the level, or to get level, to make our level of spirituality higher and higher. So here in this context, when we say spirituality, means the process of tazkiyah and cleansing of the heart or soul, or like polishing its mirror. This is the term of Imam Al-Ghazali. He used the mirror in relation to cleansing of the soul, or tazkiyah an-nafs, yeah, in order to change character from blameworthy character to trustworthy character. Yeah. So the spiritual zenith is reached first by deep, unadulterated belief, sincere emotion, and then diligent worshipping. So you cannot just get spiritual upliftment unless with a true belief, with a correct belief. Wrong belief, we cannot get a real spirituality. Maybe cheated by shayateen and then claiming his spiritual knowledge, but it is not as happened to the many people who claim to become Sufis and then try to perform miracles here and there. So this unadulterated belief, it is extremely important. And then there is aspect of emotion here, sincere emotion, love and mercy, empathy, and all other elements that promote us to go higher to the better state of spirituality. And this make us or push us to become very serious in worship, in worship as our main aim or objective of human creation. Yeah. So spirituality also can be defined as the linking of action to the purpose of life, namely to worship Allah. So any action, not every action lead to the purpose of life. Not any action leads to worship Allah, because some action is just by action. There is no value. But life, action that related to the purpose of life, for example, to worship Allah, this can make our level of spirituality can be considered as something which is spiritual. Yeah. So normal action without related to purpose of life, to worship Allah, so it's not considered as spiritual. Yeah. While spirituality can be defined as spiritual condition of an individual spiritual, religiosity can be referred as the religious condition of someone. Now I'm bringing the two together. This terminology which confusing to some people because of the confusion of a Western worldview on spirituality. So religiosity is referred to religious condition, and spirituality referred to individual spirituality. So there can be no spirituality without practice from Islamic perspective. We are totally different from Western perspective on relationship between the two. And relationship between man and his creator is the root for moral attitude of man towards his fellow man. So the closer with God he become, the more good or moral in relation to creation of Allah. Yeah, not only human being, including animal. Yeah. So human relationship should reflect the sublime qualities of Allah. If you love Allah, people who claim or people who really love Allah, this loving of Allah reflect in the love of humanity. So if he love Allah, If she loved Allah, she also loved humanity. Yeah. Of course, there is a lot of explanation here. Explanation. If one can attain a relationship with God of this quality, one can really win His pleasure, which will manifest the true basis of morality. So the true morality, basis of morality, rely on the quality of relationship with God. Yeah. So Islam perceives spirituality as the substance of morality or akhlaq. So you cannot differentiate also. If you want to speak about essence of akhlaq or morality, so there must be spirituality there. Okay. In our belief system, the way of expressing, facilitating, maintaining the level of spirituality should be in the form of religious activity. That's why we cannot differentiate or we cannot separate between spirituality and religiosity. Yeah, so we need religious activity in order to become spiritual. Yeah. So, for example, submission to God. So the expression of submission to God, like for example, gratefulness or gratitude, for example. So this is expression of submission to God. This is very important religious activity, yeah, because the meaning of religion is submission. So if we speak about religious activity, we can see in the expression of submission to God. So it is submission which is actualized in the form of ibadah, serve as the basis of Islamic religiosity. And this is precisely, clearly documented in the Quran and demonstrated by Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. For example, how to pray. For example, how do we pray? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned that Sallu kama ra'aytumuni usalli. You pray the way I pray. That's what Rasulullah mentioned. So this is the nature of Islamic submission is clearly mentioned in the Quran and demonstrated by Prophet ﷺ. So religiosity from Islamic perspective is very clear, and there is no one should doubt, no one should confuse when it comes to spirituality and religiosity, because it's clearly explained and practiced by Prophet Muhammad SAW. So religiosity is characterized by true submission. How do we judge true submission? So true submission can only be built on the cornerstone of knowledge about nature of God and the nature of man. So we speak about submission. Submission in general, they can be you can submit to anything, to any superpower, to politician, to money, to desire, to nafs. So submission can be of many kinds. But through submission, how do we get through submission? Through submission, of course, based on knowledge about nature of God and based on knowledge about nature of man, then we can pursue through submission. So Islam, the meaning of Islam is true submission. So this veritable submission is grounded on Islamic metaphysics with revelation, and based on revelation. So the central pillar of which this ontology rests is a strong faith in the unity of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Tawheed is very, very important, because Tawheed is the acid test of our submission, whether we submit to God or we submit to other than God. Yeah, because submission can be anything. Yeah. So in terms of psychology of submission, submission is the cornerstone of any religious belief, not only in Islam, but all in other religion. To religiously submit, people usually surrender oneself to one's object of worship, yeah, whether the object of worship is money or other than that, material or non-material. One does not submit until one's belief in its holiness, divinity, or sheer power of what one surrenders himself to. Like in the case of Muslim, we believe Allah is holy, Allah is divine, and has all the qualities that's stated or explained in Asma'ul Husna, His name, a beautiful name, and attributes of Allah. So this is the object of submission for Muslim. So submission can be the result of fear of real or imagined authority and power, such as a submission of a pagan tribe to god of thunder, god of fire, animism we call it, and it may be the result of deep gratitude and love. Yeah, we submit because of gratitude and love, because of shukr, and because of hub, mahabbatullah. Yeah. Submission may be an internal subject state of deep feelings and emotion, or it may take the form of visible rites, rituals, and offering, which the believers engage in. Yeah, we have seen this in almost all cultures in the world. And finally, submission may take different form of grades. Yeah. The submission related to fitrah. So fitrah, of course, human being is created with fitrah. Fatratallahu allati fataran nasa alayha. Yeah, Allah mentioned this creation of man, and fitrah is inborn quality that Allah put in man in order to pursue his responsibility and take the consequences. Yeah. But corrupting fitrah by surrendering oneself to any other deity is a spiritual disease, or which is mentioned in the Quran in different places. Yeah. And this spiritual disease or disease of spiritual disease of the heart is considered as the severest form of injustice to oneself. So Allah mentioned in the Quran so many in many places in the Quran in the form of zalama nafsah, injustice to oneself. Yeah. So injustice to oneself, including when one corrupt the fitrah. So the best among people is those who do not suffer from any disease of the heart or the psyche. Yeah. The fear of Allah or God become their spiritual passage to Islam. On the contrary, people who are healthy or sound spiritually, no disease, no sickness or spiritual or heart. Here I'm talking about spiritual heart, not physical heart. So they become, for example, fear of God for those who have no spiritual disease, or people who are spiritually motivated. So fear of God is one of the quality. So through fear of God, we become the spiritual passage to submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So to experience a genuine love for God, yet one should not fear him and his might to the extreme and to the extent that one is not able to relate to God. So there is always fear. When there is fear, there is hope. When there is fear, there is hope. Imam Al-Ghazali mentioned that the balance between the fear and hope for Muslims should be like a wing of a bird, so that they can fly. If there is no balance, a bird cannot fly. So this is the balance. It's very, very important, because people who have too much fear of Allah and they have no hope, so it becomes extreme. So the combination of love and fear, what is known as khushu'. Khushu', it is very difficult. There is no English word that correspond to the word khushu'. It is expressing of one of the highest level of submission. So, for example, we have khushu' in prayer, khushu' in ibadah. Yeah. When a true believer experiences khushu', his love and respect for God is so much intertwined with his fear and appreciation of his greatness, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala azza wa jalla. So khushu', love, respect to Allah, these are the pillars of ibadah. So man is given a unique position in order of creation. At the same time, he is charged with a unique responsibility which can be fulfilled through taqwa. Yeah, so we have so many religious terms here. There is another term here, taqwa. When you speak about spirituality, there must be taqwa there. Hence, man is called to constantly to submit to Allah by carrying out acts of worship, ibadah. So this is the purpose of creation, is to worship Allah. Allah create a human being and jinns in order to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So worshipping Allah, submitting to Allah, actually is a process of returning oneself to the state of fitrah, to the state where the primordial state by virtue of an existential debt owed by the creation to the creator. So we call it, this is in Surah Al-A'raf. Allah mentioned, Alastu bi rabbikum qalu bala shahidna. This is the primordial state of the soul which submitting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the level of at the stage of primordial. Yeah. Submission as not only concept or not merely concept. Submission is actually an experiential reality. So submission, for example, submission is general word, but when I say submission here as experiential reality is like tafakkur, like tawakkul, like muhasabah, all this spiritual experience or experience reality. Yeah, under the broad sense of the broad context of submission. Yeah. Person who submits grudgingly or not willingly will generally hate and will not respect the object of his submission, like people who are forced to submit to the police, for example. Definitely, I don't think people who are forced to submit like that will like the object of submission. Instead, on the contrary, they will create the feeling of hate and no respect. Yeah. But submission in Islam should be done willingly. So no experience of khushu' without fully submitting, but one can experience submission out of fear without reaching the level of khushu'. Yeah, of course, to reach the level of khushu' is not easy. This is among levels. There are levels of submission itself. So khushu' is among the highest level that can be attained by someone through long process of a long process of spirituality, a spiritual upliftment. Unless the Muslim fully believes that Allah is all merciful, all forgiving, all loving, he will not experience appreciation and love and will not be pleased with God. That's why to understand the concept of God, to understand, to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to know his name, to know his attribute, this is under the subject of Tawheed, we call it. But today the teaching of Tawheed, the teaching about Allah has been so confused to some people to the extent that it is off track, and then it does not reach to the objective of knowing and loving God. Yeah. So people just teach and memorize the Asma'ul Husna, but not really experience appreciation and love, and definitely will not create the feeling of loving of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For example, we are taught at school that if you commit sin, for example, you're going to be punished. If you do that, you're going to be punished. If you are not you are not good to a parent, you're going to be punished. If you are not good to your teacher, you're going to be punished. So a lot of punishment talking about teaching in order to create good character of Muslim, but through over-stressing on punishment of Allah. And they forgot that Allah is all merciful, Allah is all forgiving. And young children or even teenagers are not exposed to these attributes and beautiful names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just learn one name of Allah or the beautiful attributes of Allah, for example, all giving, Ash-Shakur, for example. With this little understanding of that, people can develop, can gradually, can have submitting heart and surrendering soul to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because because they are exposed to this kind of attributes. Yeah. And also, if he is not aware of the omnipotence and the might of Allah and his sustenance of the whole universe, he will not experience fear and appreciation. We teach Islam for people or to particularly to children, to young people, in order to create this feeling of appreciation, of love of Allah, love of Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and try to become appreciative. This is very important quality for people to have submissive heart and soul. Islamic submission involves feeling, belief, and action. Not only concept, but it involves feeling, belief, and action. Because we speak about experiential level. Yeah. This should clearly bring the fact that without faith, no man can be true Muslim. And when it comes to Islam and Iman, is the relationship between two is important. You cannot just speak about knowledge but no action. You cannot speak about action without knowledge. And not only belief and action, but also feeling. I mean, feeling the inner part of it. So Islam is also speak about feeling, speak about belief, and speak about action. Sorry. Bismillah. So submission experientially includes an integration of cognitive, affective, and behavioral aspect. This is extremely important when it comes to character building. Yeah. But if we teach Islam submission, but not mentioning about cognitive part of it, not mentioning about affective, only focusing on behavioral, for example, or only cognitive. So that's why the message of I mean, in order to create submitting heart, in order to create feeling, for example, it will not work. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, Prof.
Assalamualaikum. Okay. The connection is not good. Sorry. It is beyond my control. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I hope it's okay now. Okay. Now I will skip some of the slides. It seems that the slide is too long in order to go quickly to the. Okay, I will skip this, inshallah. I will go to. So we discussed a lot about submission, psychology of submission, theology of submission, but I would like to stress here, submission cannot be any kind of submission. When we speak about Islam, Islam is true submission. How we can say true submission? Because Islam based on Tawheed. So Islam, how to build true submission is based on knowledge of nature of God and about nature of man. So so it Islam that based on Tawheed, Islam that has been is Tawheed is actually like acid test of the truthfulness of a religion. So since Tawheed is the core teaching of Islam, so Tawheed itself become Furqan. So in order to for the which the truthfulness and falsity of religion determine. So in the case of Islam, as I said, because Tawheed itself play very important role to dismiss any form of wrong submission. So this, yeah, and also here I will go a little to explain about submission as fitrah. The concept of fitrah is fitrah as a potential good nature granted or innate or built in for human being based on the grace of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. So when we speak about fitrah, spirituality has its deep root in very nature of man. As I mentioned in earlier, without this fitrah, how do people expect human being to become good? You know, because yeah, if we compare with other teaching of other religion, for example, in one of these religion, Christianity, for example, mentioned the nature of man is evil. So when the nature of man is evil because related to the sin. What do you call this? The sin of Adam. Yeah. So this itself, it is not consistent, and it is not acceptable in terms of by reason. So but the concept of fitrah here mentioned that there is consistency here in the understanding of concept of fitrah, because without element of good nature, how do we expect human being can take responsibility and be responsible in this world and the hereafter? Yeah, so this is the brief or short statement for submission as fitrah. So man is granted with fitrah, but not enough with that. Allah also mentioned with His grace, with His loving and mercy to His creatures, He sent His messengers to guide people to the right path. Yeah. So that's why Islam is called ad-dinul fitrah, and Islam and fitrah are synonym. And this is mentioned in the hadith, kullu mauludin yuladu alal fitrah. Yeah, every child is born with fitrah. It's not mentioned, Islam is not mentioned there, but because fitrah in that context it is Islam. It is Islam. Yeah. So fitrah as like a pattern, as defined as a pattern according to which God has created all things. It is God manner creating sunnatullah, and everything fits into its pattern created for it and set its proper place. Yeah. So submission to the law of Allah, submission to the sunnah of Allah bring harmony, which means realization of inherent in one's true nature, opposing to to fitrah bring discord. So it means realization of why extraneous to one's true nature. So this is a definition of, for example, Attas giving to the meaning of fitrah and submission. So so fitrah is it is something that is granted by Allah to humanity, to human being, in order for human being to understand his nature, his true nature, to understand Allah, to understand his creator, and to be moral, and to take the responsibility and to be moral. So through revelation, human being can understand how to express the concept of shukr or gratitude to Allah, i.e. to worship, how to worship Allah. So revelation come to teach, to guide people to in order for people to do ibadah proper. Worshipping him, beside being an expression of gratitude, is also a mean, in fact the best mean to keep fitrah alive, or protecting it and cultivating it. So ibadah protects from indecency or fahsha or dishonor or munkar, and it makes one mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, and it is mentioned in Surah Ash-Shams about to protect the fitrah. Qad aflaha man tazakkaha wa qad khaba man dassaha. Truly, he succeeds, and that purifies, and he fails that who corrupts it. So people who succeed is those who clean, who purify themselves through ibadah, and those who fail because do fail to perform ibadah, or to perform the objective of their creation or the purpose of the creation, so they will corrupt the fitrah. So here we speak about the concept of Khalifatullah fil ard. Khalifa, vicegerents of God, is for those who with fitrah and protect the fitrah, in fact cultivate the concept of fitrah through the concept of ibadah. And of course here we find the term trust, amanah, and the consequences of amanah, because its consequences is responsibility on human part to submit all of himself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the result of submission, we are not only gain in the hereafter, but also can be reaped in here in this world. We get at least tranquil heart. Submitting person, people who submit themselves to Allah will get better psycho-spiritual status, psycho-spiritual condition. And this is because through submission necessitate the realization of spiritual experiences, such as relying on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, tawakkul, patience, gratitude, muhabbah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what we call inner dimension of submission, or experiential aspect of submission. And those who submit to Allah, of course, they will get what we call happiness. And those who deprive themselves, or those who do not do, who do not submit to Allah, they will suffer in this world and the hereafter. What we call as misery or shaqawa. So sa'ada or happiness versus shaqawa. So all this depends on the purification of the soul. So when we speak about purification of the soul, the inner dimension of Islam, so we come to the word ihsan. So ihsan is the pinnacle of Islamic spirituality. So Islam, as we understand, we are aware that Islam not only for ritual do's and don'ts, not only related to the word ta'ah, obedient to Allah wa Rasul, but nothing to do with feeling or emotion. It is not so. Islam contains an esoteric and exoteric dimension. Islam contains internal and external dimension. Islam has beyond and above the external outward manifestation of religion. There is a more profound, subtle, and complicated dimension. So a Muslim who chooses to ascend the ladder of Islamic spirituality, as indicated in the hadith about self-purification, got to dwell on soul purification until he worship Allah. This is on hadith on ihsan, yeah? Until he worship Allah as if he sees him. Because as the Prophet ﷺ says, if he does not actually see him, Allah is indeed seeing him all the time. This hadith narrated by Bukhari and Muslim. So when we speak about inner dimension of Islam, we speak about ihsan. So Rasulullah SAW mentioned the meaning of ihsan here. You will anta abudullaha ka'annaka tarahu fa in takum tarahu fa innahu yaraka. So you worship Allah as if you see him, even though if you don't see him, but he sees you. So what does this mean? This means that you worship you with your heart, with sincerity, yeah, diligently, struggling in order to purify yourself. So this is the effort to go beyond normal or beyond external aspect of Islam. So this is the inner dimension of Islam or experiential aspect of submission, namely tasawwuf. So when you speak about ihsan, actually we speak a lot about discipline of tasawwuf. And in fact, tasawwuf is none other than the intensification of the Sharia upon oneself. Yeah. It is the expression of ihsan in the abd or slave of Allah or worshipper of Allah. It is ibadah fortified and enlightened by intellectual and discerning, leading to spiritual apprehension of realities. It is the practice of Sharia at the station of ihsan. So that's why ihsan is the pinnacle of reality. So this is based on hadith. They call it hadith Jibril, and there is another name for that hadith also very famous about Islam, Iman Ihsan. Yeah. So Islam as the exterior dimension of religion, outward conformity, Iman is internalizing with correct belief, and Ihsan is to do something beautiful, moral perfection, or entering into a state which is beautiful. It is the culmination of the faith of Islam and Iman. So Islam and Iman, Ihsan, is the highest spiritual stage that implies a total commitment of the body, the soul, and the spirit. Yeah. So the word Ihsan itself denotes to perform something in the best manner and more accurately, manifestation of what is beautiful. So Allah mentioned this in many places in the Quran. For example, Surah Al-Kahfi, Allah mentioned that وَمَنْ آمَنَ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا فَلَهُ جَزَاءَ الْحُسْنَى. Yeah, so those who do good act, Allah gives beautiful reward. Yeah, so it is to rise and cultivate one consciousness in terms of slavery to Allah. One is aware that nothing can be hidden from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah. So this means that the consciousness of the presence of Allah, hudur, or it is explanation of khushu also, feeling the presence of Allah, and feeling of love and awe which accompany must strengthen both our faith and practice. And this sense of presence is not confined only to worship in its specific sense, but to all our actions. Yeah, to all our action. Yeah, it is holistic. Yeah, indeed, this awareness of nearness and presence of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, what the Sufis search in their ultimate goal, all their activities. Yeah. So when a Muslim worshipper reach the level or maqam of ihsan, he would have reached the pinnacle of Islamic spirituality. So Alhamdulillah, I stop here uh, for tonight. Inshallah, if we have question or comment or views, we can inshallah pursue now. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Prof. With a very deep discussion on submission. A few important points that from the discussion, from the PowerPoint that you have discussed. I like this word that submission is intensification of Sharia. People sometimes want to free themselves from Sharia, but actually the more religious, the more sincere we are, the more we are committed to Sharia, not beyond Sharia. All of this, this deviant teaching, they all want to go beyond Sharia.
Right.
Okay, we have one from Brother Nuruddin. Prof, is the Western spiritual concept much influenced by the New Age movement? Furthermore, the philosophy of pragmatism that position religion acceptable as long as it has practical use also contributes to the current concept of spirituality in the West, which tend to be anti-religious and individualistic. New Age movement.
Yes. So the question is about the nature of Western spirituality, which is influenced by the New Age movement. Yes, I think to some extent. And also here, philosophy is the philosophy of pragmatism that position religion acceptable as long as it has practical use, also contribute to the current concept of spirituality in the West, which tend to be anti-religious and individualistic. Yeah, very good questions. Yeah, I think so far we explained, even in the last class, we speak about the nature of Western spirituality, or it is considered as spiritual religion, as spiritualism. It's a form of ideology, for example. The influence, I think, first we should know that psychologically and historically, Western society were suffering, or still are suffering, from the torture from a religious side or religious authority. So they are in trauma. They are in post-traumatic depression about religion. So when I remember Scott Peck, a famous psychologist, written the book Route Less Travel, he said Western people, when the word religion mentioned to them, they imagine like acquisition. They imagine what do you call this? All kind of suffering. They imagine torture. They imagine all behavior done to them, or the suffering happen in the Dark Ages, which last for 1,000 years, because more than 1,000 years. I mean, people of religious authority control churches. I mean, more than 1,000 years. Yeah. So this is the beginning, or this is the starting point of hatred or antagonistic to religion. They consider religions their enemy, because religion of that practice, of course, truly enemy with hatred and antagonistic to humanity, is enemy for humanity. So that's why they have every right to hate their religion. But of course, we have different experience. We do not have dark ages in our time, do we? We do not have middle ages in our history. We don't have that. Yeah. So but these people, these this society, they were suffering, they are still suffering. That's why they have feminism, for example. Look at the way feminist people express themselves when it comes to religion. And atheists themselves, they consider religious is evil. Nowadays is even worse. Neo atheism consider religion and attack religion in a very aggressive way. Yeah, and of course Islamophobia is part of this system of hating religion. Yeah, so this is the beginning, and of course on the way until modern today, there are so many ideologies, there are so many worldviews, whether they are new age movement or they are philosophy of pragmatism. They have two pillars. They have two pillars. First, they reject religion. I mean, they are secular. So secular means rejection of any form of spiritual or supernatural. So look at the definition of secularism by Professor Abbas. Of course, he mentioned three dimensions of secularism. So which two of them are very important. Anything related to spirituality is rejected. Anything related to religious authority is rejected. Anything related to sacred is rejected, because they are for profane, they go for mundane world. They don't care about anything that relates to spirituality is part of the religious system. So it has been marginalized, at least for those who are not extreme. But for those who are extreme, like neo-atheism, just kick out downright. Religion is evil. Religion is all negative about religion. So they are all coming from this group. So but because of Fitrah just now, they want to submit to something. So they try to find, people by nature is submissive. So they invent their own new religion. So under the name of with God, nothing to do with religion, nothing to do with spirituality, only religion of their own making. Yeah, of course. Before that, they have new science and technology as their religion. They crown as their religion, but then still science and technology do not satisfy, do not make them still suffering from enemies, as I mentioned in my first class. Yeah, so they feel emptiness. They feel that there is no sense of purpose. They are suffering psychologically. So they need God. They need religion. So that's why they create their own religion. People of this type. But I do not deny people in Christian religion, those who believe that religiosity is very important in spirituality. Yeah. But because your questions addressed to modern philosophy of pragmatism and philosophical, Western ideologies today. So they use, for them, spirituality is to be enemy of religion. You know. Yeah. Okay. And another question: can the concept of Western Sufism to be said to be form of secularism of Sufism? Yes, I think so. People secularize religion. People secularize spirituality, particularly secular humanism. Secular humanism sounds good. There are a lot of good contribution from secular humanism, but unfortunately, secular humanism tried to secularize spirituality. For example, they like, of course, Buddhism. They go very well with Buddhism, because in Buddhism, there is no such thing as religion, not even concept of God mentioned there. It's talking about the activity of human brain, floating yourself in water for 48 hours. And then, this is only related to brain, physical. Yeah, so it goes very well with them. Yeah, that's why they need this kind of form, but in a secularized manner. So I agree with this term, secularized spirituality. Yeah. I hope I.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Prof. There's now a current trend is this Taoism going with the flow. Also now it's up in the market. For now, say okay, we go with the flow, that our life will be okay. That's another approach nowadays. Thank you, Prof. Final word for tonight, Prof. A bit of summary for our discussion.
Yes. When we speak about spirituality, because the title of the lecture, the whole lecture based on the contribution, the quest for spirituality, contribution from Tasawwuf. So I would like to say that though many people, I mean some Muslim, against this concept of Sufism or Tasawwuf, but I myself, I come from department of Usuluddin and comparative religion. I have the responsibility to stand for this term. Yeah, some people are allergic when you use the word Sufi or Tasawwuf. They are allergic. They cannot accept. But to me, I understand this Sufism or Tasawwuf is the inner dimension of our religion. Without inner dimension of our religion, we have no substance. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. See you next week, inshallah.